Vanakkam, namaste to all of you. Fortunately, I don't know Telugu, so I will have to speak in English. I wish I had more knowledge of Telugu. I'm sorry. We'd like to start by stating that we are here to celebrate this wonderful human being, the son of Bharat, called Gazula Lakshmi Narasu Chetty. Now, most of the things that I had to speak has already been said by our chief guest of the program. So I will make my speech very short. I just like to focus upon 4 to 5 things, which is there in the book, which is the base premise of the book. First thing is what all things he's achieved with regard to education. We had this famine called the Guntur famine in 1833, where millions and millions of people died. After which we had the charter of 1833, which was set by the British, and we had the first law commission, which was brought in by Lord Macaulay. We all know about Macaulay. In 1836, we had the establishment of something called as the Madras Chamber of Commerce, in which one of the first native founding members was the father of Gazula Lakshmi Narasu Chetty. His name is Sidulu Chetty. We still have a street in his name called Sadula Street in Madras. He was one of the most richest cotton merchants in Madras Presidency. He was exporting cotton. He was manufacturer of handkerchiefs, of indigo, of muslin, of dye. And he was one of the most richest people in Madras at that point of time. He shared his business interests with people like Bidney, with Arbuthnot, and one of the most richest British businessmen of that point of time in India. So we can say very safely that Gazula Lakshmi Narasu Chetty was born to one of the most wealthiest families in Madras at that point of time. He could have developed his trade, he could have become much more richer, but he did not do that. He wanted to be rich by his heart and to make sure that our own people, the kind of torment that our own people had under the rule of the British, he wanted to do something about it to lessen the burden that our people were facing under the brutal British rule. So what he did was, he was instrumental and responsible in doing the first mass education protest in Madras. I don't know how many of you know this, because it's not there in our history. It's not there in any of the history books from what we can see. About 70,000 people, 70,000 people have signed a mass petition. And on 11th of November 1839, this petition was given to the then governor of Madras called as Elphinstone. And as a result of this petition, this petition is even now there available in form of a scroll in the St. Pancras room in the British Library in London. We have kept the photo of that in the book. This mass petition paved for 3 things which happened in Madras. Number 1 is the establishment of what we know as the Madras University in Pantheon Road, because Madras University is considered to be the mother of all the universities in South India. That is considered to be one of the first organized university in South India. Point number 2 is that they ensure that the concept of religious neutrality was maintained not only in Madras but all the government and government-aided schools across Madras in the Madras Presidency. And point number 3, they ensured that this Madras Native Education Petition ensured that Native Indians were given more representation in the education field and also in the government and government-aided schools. And we were allowed to maintain, this is very important, we were allowed to maintain and start our own education institutions after that. As a result of which, even though there was a person called Mr. Pachepa who had given his will, it was not come into force for more than about 80 years. It was after this petition that we have one of the most important educational landmarks in Madras Presidency called as the Pachepa Charities, which came into force in 1841. And the first president of that was Sir George Norton, who was the Advocate General of Madras Presidency at that point of time. And then we had Gazula Lakshmi Narasu Chetty as one of the most important founding trustees of that charities of that school. The school is it's now a college. On 6th of September this week, we are planning to have a memorial in that college in his honor on his death day. These were the most important things that happened as a result of the education petition. Now, moving forward to the printing industry, there was a very big apartheid as far as the printing industry in Madras is concerned. The reason why I'm using this word called as apartheid, as far as Madras presidency is concerned, is because we were having a total ban on our native, local Indian people to even own a printing press. Our own Indian people were not allowed to own the printing press. That's what we can see from the records. So in 1844, he did something which is unimaginable at that point of time. He started owning a printing press in number 13 Armenian Street, which is opposite to the present High Court. And that printing press was named as Hindu. He did not have the printing press in name of his father's company or his name. He named it as the Hindu to show that we are equal to the British and we are not less than you. That is what he did. And as a result of which, a newspaper was started, so named after the Lord Shiva's crescent moon. It was called as the Madras Crescent. I would like to focus upon this newspaper because it's a very important topic of subject. We have many journalists over here. The Madras Crescent was one of the most revolutionary, pioneering newspapers at that point of time. In 1844, when the newspaper was started, it had editors who were former white British naval retired officers. One of the most important editors at that point of time for a newspaper, because we all know that for a newspaper to be successful, we require the editor to be, with a very good, keen intellect and a sharp frame of mind. So the editor was called as Harvey Dexter, who was appointed by Gazula Lakshmi Narasu Chetty. Now, interestingly, the newspaper was not an ordinary newspaper, as how G had said. It had subscription of more than 10,700 in 1848, 100 years before our independence in 1848. Just imagine this for the moment, the kind of paperwork that would have been involved. There is no electricity, there is no telegraph, there is no telephone, there is no email, there is no WhatsApp, there is nothing. Without any of these things, to have a subscription of more than about 10,700 at that point of time is no mean ordinary feat. That is what Gazula Lakshmi Narasu Chetty had achieved at that point of time. And he was against one of the most important newspapers of that point of time, like the Athenaeum, the Spectator, the Madras Record. And he was not having a newspaper giving news, which was like the normal news that we all see today. It was exposing day after day. What he was doing is, he was exposing the atrocities of the British in that newspaper. If anybody wanted to know what the British were doing as atrocity in Madras presidency, you just have to look into the Madras Crescent. One of the most important things that happened was, it was the first time, from what we can see, that an event of investigative journalism had been prosecuted by the British. Because we had a Telugu translator called Venkatacharya Naidu. He was in the Fort St. George Telugu department. Once what happened was, the British wanted to use the funds which was there for the pakoras for our Hindu temples, the surplus funds and the surplus lands to be utilized by the British. But it was in the composition of the company, the administration at that point of time. The other two members of the company said no, but the governor wanted to interfere and he wanted to do it. His name was Marquis of Tweedledale, Sir George Hay. What they did was, they dropped the plan. They did not want to publish it in the Gazette. The next day, that plan, which was a minute, it was published in the Madras Crescent. The British were shocked. We did not publish it in the Gazette. How did this get published in the Madras Crescent? What we spoke in Fort St. George amongst the 3 white British people, how did this get published in the Madras Crescent? They were really shocked. They became a laughing stock when they came out and said, we are going to withdraw this. It was a clear major embarrassment of British administration. The so-called British efficient administration was a huge embarrassment. This Venkatacharya Naidu was a Telugu translator. He was later posted to Chengalpet district as head Telugu translator for the entire district. He was given a promotion from Fort St. George. What he used to do was, he used to get all the documents from Fort St. George. He used to have in Telugu translated, keep one copy for himself, and the other copy, he used to give it to Gazula Lakshmi Narasu Chetty on his way home from Fort St. George, and he used to publish it in the Madras Crescent. This was going on for some time till this particular incident happened. There was an inquiry which was conducted. It is for the first time that an inquiry for investigative journalism took place in Madras Presidency, and as a result of which Venkatacharyalu Naidu had to be dismissed from service, from being as Telugu translator. After that, what happened was he became an owner of another newspaper, which was supported by Gazula Lakshmi Narasu Chetty. It was an English newspaper. It was called as The Rising Sun. I come from Tamil Nadu, but that's coincidental. So next thing what happened was the Madras Crescent, through, of course, the network that Gazula Lakshmi Narasu Chetty had, it got published. The news items which were printed in the Madras Crescent, we could see from the evidence what we have seen, what we have kept and researched. It was there, for example, I'll tell you the newspaper's name: the Hobart Courier, Huddersfield Chronicle, the Irish Chronicle, you have the London Gazette, you have the Morning Star, and you have various other newspapers in London. You have the Hong Kong and China Overseas Mail, and you have various other newspapers. For example, the Sydney Morning Times. All these newspapers, they carried the news item, because those days newspapers were not daily being published. It was being published only weekly twice. These new items were being sent across the Commonwealth in the British Empire. And from the Madras, if they have to publish a newspaper, the item from a particular newspaper, they were publishing that from the Madras Crescent. That was the credibility of the newspaper that he was having. Imagine for international newspapers to quote from the Madras Crescent and publish. That is not an ordinary thing, because we are natives. At the end of the day, we are not white-skinned. But for those white-skinned people to make sure that we have a newspaper, and that is the most credible news coming from Madras. I'm talking about our own presidency, the Madras presidency at that point of time. To publish that is not an ordinary thing. That is what he achieved. And that nobody can take away from him. After that, there was something called as the British Indian Association, which was formed in Calcutta. Based upon that, Gazula Lakshmi Narasu Chetty on 26th of February 1852 started an organization called Madras Native Association for the natives of Madras Presidency, the Indian natives of Madras Presidency. Now, he did not want it to function as a mere, giving a memorial, going to the people, having tea with the British, giving the representation, coming back. No. What he did was, he got information, documentary evidence of all the atrocities that the British were doing. One very important thing that the British did at that point of time, I don't know if it is there in the history books again, which was pertaining to torture in collection of tax. So these infliction of torture, these instances of alleged torture, which was there perpetrated by the British officials and by certain native officials to make sure that they please their British masters. This was being done and published by the Madras Crescent in their newspaper. At first, the British denied it. They said there was nothing of that sort. The issue became huge when the Madras Native Association was a pioneer in itself, because the issue became huge when in every district they had their well-oiled organization missionary. And they had a secretary, a president, a librarian, everything they had. And they passed resolutions after resolutions, and they gave it to the Governor General in Bengal and also to the governor in Madras. Still, there was no action. After that, they decided that you are not our masters. The main masters are there in England. So what we will do, we will go there only. We have waited with you very patiently. They started sending memorials to England. Interestingly, at that point of time, all the newspapers in England published the memorials that Gazula Lakshmi Narasu Chetty sent to England, because he did not just send in a piece of paper a memorial. He sent it appended with 12,000 signatures of those victims who were the victims of the torture which was inflicted upon them by the British authorities. And this was all published in all the newspapers in London at that point of time. You had the Manchester Chamber of Commerce. In Manchester, it became a very big issue because he was a member of the Madras Chamber of Commerce. In Manchester also, he had connections. Through that, this was published in Manchester also. The British responded. This is how they responded. We had 5 British parliamentarians. Sir Henry Danby Seymour. You had the person called Earl of Ellenborough. You had Earl of Albemarle. and two other very important people called Mr. Blanket and one more person called Mr. Fillimore. Now, these people, what they did was they got hold of the petitions which were sent to them. Henry Danby Seymour, in a very clandestine manner, came to Madras Presidency. He wanted to see it firsthand. So in 1853 or 1852, I would say, he embarked on a journey to Madras, stating that he was going to Ceylon, but he came to Madras. He went to all the places, Bellary, Rajamundry, Ganjam, and this side to Vengurla in Karnataka. I don't know still where Vengurla is, but this is all documented. That's how we come to know. And then within Tamil Nadu to Periyapalayam, to Virudachalam, to Coimbatore, to various places, including Tirunelveli, all the other places across Tamil Nadu, he went for a tour. He was hosted by Gazulu. In all these places, he went and he met the victims and he saw firsthand when he used to travel, even though being a British officer coming in the coach, still the torture used to take place in front of him. And he was really shocked. He made note of all these things and he went back to England. In House of Commons, this was then taken up as a matter of debate. For 3 days, this matter was debated in the House of Commons. Leave alone a debate happening in our local councillor office. That's a different issue. Having that itself is a very big thing for us normal Indians. Imagine for a moment, a native Indian's plight is being debated as a hot news as a most important debate, as a hot news. It is being reported across the British newspapers and it is being debated in the House of Commons. 3 days continuously this was debated. The memorial petition, which was signed by the Madras Native Association, was presented on Tamil New Year's Day, which is like to be in sympathy with the Tamil victims. It was presented by Earl of Albemarle. It was the 5th memorial petition. It was presented in the House of Commons by Earl of Albemarle. A huge debate started after that because they were looking at the Russians and saying, you have the Smurfs system in Russia. And you people are not doing properly in Russia. They were looking at the Tsar and the British were taunting the Tsar in their newspapers. When this particular thing happened, the Tsar came and he started saying, you have your own India, you take care of that first. And then you come and you look at us is what of the exchange of information that took place amongst them. This debate took place. It was put to vote in the House of Commons. The people in the House of Commons, the members of Parliament of Great Britain, they voted. The House was divided. Neither yes nor no. 62 yes, 62 no. That is how the House was divided. Now, it was a huge embarrassment to the ruling government at that point of time. Imagine there is an issue which is being put into vote in British democracy and it is being divided. Just imagine the kind of embarrassment that the ruling government will have with regard to the issue of India land tenure in Madras at that point of time. So what they decided was, they decided to take this issue head on and they appointed something called as the Royal Commission Inquiry on Torture, the alleged cases of torture. They appointed 3 members. One was Sir John Bruce Norton, second was Sir Walter Elliot, and then it was the Governor of Madras. They prepared a report. Before preparing a report, they formed a procedure as to how they have to prepare a report. They sent notices to all district and to all taluk to be pasted outside the Tahsildar's office and through Tom. They thought that not more than 100 people will come, we can close it. It so happened that in Madras, when this thing happened, they gave enough time. They gave about 2 weeks' time. Thousands of people gathered in Madras from Andhra, from Karnataka, from Malabar, from present-day border of Andhra and Odisha we have. From there, from Vengurla in Karnataka, they all came. And from Tamil Nadu also. Thousands of people came. Just imagine, there was no railways. There was nothing. They came there of hope because the British government was giving them a lending year. So they thought that their problems could be solved because they had to pay taxes, the kind of torture that they were imposed on. I cannot say over here, considering my decency, that was how humiliating the torture was. We have kept the cases of torture which was there, but many people have died. Many pregnant women have died in thousands because of this torture. I cannot say anything beyond this. It was inhuman. Inhuman, brutal torture was done. Even the Irish people, they're not subjected to this kind of torture because we consider in the British Empire, the Irish was the worst to be suffered, but it is actually the Madras Presidency people who have suffered a lot as a result of this torture. Now, after this, the commissioners who were appointed, they used to break down. They used to cry and they used to break down. We have been so cruel to our, the native peoples of Madras. They realized the cruelty and the brutality of their own fellow officers at that point of time. And they said, this is a very serious issue. We had to do something about it. And they gave 5 recommendations, which is still there today, which is the hallmark recommendations. Number 1, torture as a means to extract tax should be abolished completely. Point number 2, police and revenue were together till that point of time. There was a recommendation which was given that police and revenue shall be dehyphenated and there shall be 2 separate departments. Point number 3, those officials who were responsible for torture, both native as well as the British officials, the white British officials, they have to be put to task. Point number 4, we need a better mechanism and system to get tax. This was also a reason why income tax was brought in to India in 1861 by Mr. Wilson, who was where he brought in the first budget. After this recommendation was sent to the House of Commons. It was adopted, and Queen Victoria had said, "You people have been doing this in my name. Please stop doing this in my name and stop spoiling my family's name." It was abolished. It was possible only because of one man, which is Gazula Lakshmi Narasu Chetty. If not for him, this would not have happened. The British, after the First War of Independence, they decided that, we have got this person in a very wrong perspective. He's worked for the people of the Madras Presidency. It's high time we have a rapprochement with, because they had a rude awakening after the First War of Independence. We all know what happened. So they wanted to have a, more cohesive rapprochement attitude towards the Indians. So in 1861, a charter was introduced. In 1864, in Tamil New Year's Day, Gazula Lakshmi Narasu Chetty became the second native member being nominated into the Madras Legislative Council by the British. And in 1866, he was awarded the Order of the Star of Companion of India, which is one of the most highest order which has been given by the British to many native Indians. He was the recipient of the Order of the Star of Companion of India for his services towards the native Indians. And he was continuing to be the member of the Pachepa Trust. He passed away on 6th of September in 1868. A memorial was held in Pachepa in his name, in which the then Advocate General John Bruce Norton came, and he was the chairman of the memorial. There was a public portrait through public subscription which was collected. That portrait still is there in Pachepa College, for which homage is being given in 6th September. I'm happy to say in this 6th September of 2024, there's homage being given where we are doing it. And after that, one very important, interesting thing happened. I'll just conclude by saying that there was a person by name Sir Basham Iyengar, who became the first native Advocate General of Madras High Court. His statue is still there in the Madras High Court premises. Now, his name is Vembakam Basham Iyengar. He revived the Madras Native Association in 1881. After reviving the Madras Native Association in 1881, he became the president of that revived organization as a tribute to Gazula Lakshmi Narasu Chetty. The secretary of that organization was Tanjavur Ganapati Dikshitar Subramanya Iyer. He is the secretary of that organization. And the English-British advisor or the political agent of that organization was Sir Eardley Norton, who was the son of John Bruce Norton, who was a commissioner in the Torture Commission and who led the memorial for Gazula Lakshmi Narasu Chetty. His son was the British advisor. Now, this Tanjavur Dikshitar Ganapati Subramanya Iyer was responsible for starting a newspaper in 1878 in October, which we all know as the Hindu newspaper. And this Vembakam Basham Iyengar went on to become the first native Advocate General of the Madras High Court. He also became the later president of the Madras High Court, of the Madras High Court Bar Association. And John Bruce Norton did something in which he started an organization called the Madras Bar Association in Madras High Court for British barristers. Now, the Hindu newspaper was started after that, and Madras Native Association was revived by Vembakam Basham Iyengar. After he became the Advocate General, the mantle was passed on to a few other people. That organization metamorphosed into Madras Mahajana Sabha. The name was changed, Madras Mahajana Sabha split into two factions. The factions which was originally with the Madras Native Association split from the existing Madras Mahajana Sabha. They formed into an organization which we all know today as the Indian National Congress. So this is the history behind this particular organization. So we owe our breath of fresh air of independence, because we just celebrated our Independence Day. We owe that. Yeah, the Bible. Yeah, we had an incident. Thanks, Chief, for reminding. We had an incident in Madras, which I would like to say with, if we have just two minutes of your time. In 1846, Bible was being made as a mandatory curriculum in Madras Presidency in the government and government-aided schools. I'm talking about the British Christian missionaries, not Christian missionaries. So at that point of time, on 7th of October 1846, there was a mass demonstration which took place outside Pachepas. The chairman of that meeting was Gazula Lakshmi Narasu Chetty. This particular signature, this particular thing called chairman of G. Gazula Lakshmi Narasu Chetty, we have taken it from that memorial, the archives, from the Madras archive, which is about 200 years old. From where we have taken this particular thing, that memorial, in which he has a title for that particular thing called Groans of the Hindus. That is the title which is given to the memorial. They fought very hard to ensure that Bible should not be made as the mandatory curriculum for government and government-aided schools. And about 14,000 people signed that memorial. There was a mass demonstration which took place, and it was given to Marquis of Tweedledale, the governor of Madras at that point of time. Now, there was a person called Henry Chamiers, whose father was John Chamiers, who was Chief Secretary to Madras Presidency. And he was a member of the Madras Governing Council of the English East India Company at that point of time. Even though he was born as a British, he was born in Madras. And then he got his education in England, and then he came back to Madras. And he continued to be nominated as the member of the Madras Governing Council. He was there in 1846. This person called Henry Chamiers, he has written 3 dissenting minutes, not 1, not 2, but he has written 3 dissenting minutes acknowledging that this particular move of having Bible as a mandatory curriculum is wrong. Acknowledging that there have been atrocities by the British Christian missionaries in cahoots with the government of Madras and certain officials of the Madras government at that point of time. An example being in Chengalpet, the district judge at that point of time, he used to suspend the court to have a Christian prayer at that point of time. This was documented, and that judge was subsequently transferred. All these things were documented, and he wrote 3 minutes. Henry Chamiers wrote 3 minutes. We still have a road called Chamiers Road, which is one of the posh roads in Madras, named after him. After he wrote that, the governor said that we have made a very big mistake. This matter was in fact debated in the House of Commons. We have kept that also in the book. The governor said what has happened is wrong. We should not have made this move of having the Bible as a mandatory curriculum in government and government-aided schools. And it was because of the pressure which was given by him outside Pachepa College. It was as a result of that. That is why we have the book cover like this. First Native Voice of Madras. This is the Pachepa College edifice which is still there. Gazula Lakshmi Narasu Chetty as a chairman. And as a result of which, for the first time in the history of Madras, the British had to back down on their own order, which they gave, that Bibles have to be made as a mandatory curriculum in government and government-aided schools. The British had to withdraw that. They were forced to withdraw their own order. It was because of this person that they were forced to withdraw. Had he not resisted that particular thing at that point of time, had he not had the maturity to resist at that point of time, we don't know what would have happened to our population. How many of us would have been Christians? We don't know. Because that was a ploy which was there by the British at that point of time. It is well documented. And it is highlighted in the book also. And a very interesting thing apart from that is that there was a chowdhury called Monega Chowdhury. It is named after a temple Maniyakara management. Temple manager is called Maniyakara in Tamil. It is called Monega Chowdhury, which was there in North Madras. Now, it was established after Hyder Ali came and destroyed Madras. There was famine. As a result of which, it was only the temple Maniyakara who was stored the grains below, underneath the surface. And he brought that up, and he was feeding the poor people who were starving. Per day, 30,000 people were given gruel. That is, they were given kanji. In Tamil, we call it as kanji. I'm not saying this. The British government has said this. To feed 30,000 people 3 times a day is not an ordinary thing. That is why the British government said, we are going to take over that and we will ensure that we give that food to the poor people. That is what Monica Chowdhury is. That is what the Temple Maniakara did. Now, that was a charity. As Annadanam, we all know in Hinduism, there is a concept of Annadanam. So that charity, they had many high influential, wealthy business native people who were supposed to be on the board of that particular Chowdhury. Gazula Lakshmi Narasu Chetty was nominated to be on that board. That appointment order also we have kept. Interestingly, the white European, one more white European who was appointed along with him was Captain Christopher Biden, who's supposed to be an ancestor of Joe Biden, who's the president of America right now. I don't know if he's really there or not, I don't know. I'm saying supposed to be an ancestor. We don't know about that. We have that appointment order also to show as to what happened in Madras at that point of time. So next time if somebody comes and says that it was because of the benevolence of the British that we had charity, it is wrong. The British themselves accepted that in Madras Presidency, you had the Temple Maniakara who was giving charity. Next time if somebody comes and says that it was the British who, because of their benevolence, that we have education in the language that I am communicating to you, which is in English, that is also wrong. Because it was because of the Madras Native Education Petition that we natives were able to establish our own schools through our own funds, to have our own teachers, to give English education to our own native people. This was done by Gazula Lakshmi Narasu Chetty, as a result of which we have the Pachayappa College which is standing there. And the Madras University also came there only because of the fight which was done by our native people. The education school petition even now is there in St. Pancras Room in British Library in London. So next time if they come and say that as far as charity and education, we were the people who did it, was the British who did it, they are lying to you, or probably they are saying out of ignorance. Now that you have the awareness, please counter that particular narrative with documentary evidence, which I have kept in the book. Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity. Thank you so much. Thank you. I would like to thank the Center for South Indian Studies and Samvit Prakashan. If not for them, I wouldn't be standing here. I would like to also thank our translator, Narasimhan ji, our chief guest, and ji also who is present over here. Most importantly, Ayush ji and our Kumaresan ji, who's present over here. Please get up, Kumaresan ji. He's been very helpful in the book coming out. So I would like to thank Center for South Indian Studies and also Samachar Bharati and Samvit Prakasham for helping us in publishing this book. And also Chief Justice Vaidyanathan for giving the foreword, Mr. R. N. Ravi, the Governor of Madras, of Tamil Nadu, Mr. N. Ravi, the Hindu newspaper chief editor, and Mr. T. S. Krishnan, who couldn't be over here. He's a great grandson of an independence freedom fighter called Subramania Seva. He couldn't come over here because of bad weather. He's also given a foreword. So I would like to thank also Mr. Vishnu Hari Ram, who has helped us with regard to the book. All of them, I would like to thank sincerely from the bottom of my heart for helping me in releasing this book. Thank you so much. Thank you for this opportunity.